Welcome to Real Estate Meets AI. I'm Sandeep Ahuja, CEO and co-founder of Cove, the AI-first architecture practice. If you're curious about how AI is reshaping buildings and spaces from the inside out, you're in the right place. Here's something wild to think about. Roughly 2.8% of global GDP flows through one company's building. The company is Prologis, and today I'm talking to Will O'Donnell, who's global head of corporate development and growth and founded Prologis Ventures, their venture arm that deployed hundreds of millions of dollars across startups and is now helping the world's largest logistics landlord evolve from four walls and a roof into what they call intelligent infrastructure platform. And they just partnered with Nvidia to build AI data centers. From warehouse to AI infrastructure, this conversation is going to be a ride. So let's dive right in. Well, welcome to Real Estate Meets AI.
Sandeep, pleasure. Thank you for having me here today.
So you have been inside more warehouses and logistical facilities than almost anyone in the industry. You see what's actually happening on the ground. So we'll kick it off with our AI meter, where on a scale of 1 to 5, with A being AI averse and 5 being AI forward, where is logistics and industrial real estate in the world right now when it comes to AI?
I think it's a combination of both. I think people, like most companies, are at the entry stage, but really intrigued and trying to figure out what the applications would be. So AI use cases have been in use for a long time. Whereas, okay, if you're doing inventory planning or route optimization, companies are using AI for those functions. I think obviously with the large language models and all the massive influx that's come, people are trying to figure out what the implications are. And I'm really, really bullish on the opportunity for a couple of reasons. I mean, one, it is a physical movement of goods. And one of the challenges the industry faces is everything is siloed. So we own a warehouse, someone else operates the warehouse. You have thousands of companies driving the trucks. You have people on the containers. You have the ships out there. So there's a lot of touch points by different organizations throughout a supply chain, which is why it's literally called a chain. And because of that, a lot of the data is siloed. And what the large language models allow you to happen is get much better access to information in real time and connect the dots. You also start looking at things like computer vision on how do I take physical information and actually turn it into actionable data insights. The challenge that a lot of companies are facing, which is you need clean data. So as a starting point, if your data's a mess, if your data's not consistent, if your data's in silos, it's really hard to extract the most value from AI that you could. So a lot of the work that industry is doing right now is how do we get our data in the right spot? But we're having more and more conversations with our customers about AI, how to think about it, how to integrate it into warehouse operations, and how to put the right infrastructure in place to allow people to maximize value.
That makes sense. So for all that are listening, there's a few things I pulled away. One, clean data is necessary. I think we've heard that on this show time and time again. Garbage in, garbage out. So the cleaner your data, the more types of data points you're recording, the better it is. Two, I heard in some way that you're saying folks are kind of just starting to get interested, just kind of dipping their feet. So on a scale of 1 to 5, is that like a 1 or a 2?
No,
Maybe not a 1. Where is that?
No, I'd say probably on the industry wide, they're 2, 3. You have some companies, there's obviously some very big tech leaning companies out there that are very important within logistics that are at the 5 level.
Yeah.
That said, the technology itself is evolving, and just the changes we've seen in the last 3 years, what was revolutionary 3 years ago is now antiquated. So just the leaps and bounds that it's making, I'm excited about because I think it's one of those continual learning processes. No one really knows at this point where it'll end up or what the opportunity is. There's just a lot of excitement about it. One of the things that we had done, because clean data was an issue that Prologis had been grappling with for a while, and for about 4 or 5 years, we had metrics around data centricity and getting people to enter data correctly. 3 years ago, we actually had 35% of the company's bonus tied to 6 categories of data and hitting 99% accuracy. And weekly reports were sent out. Everything was color coded. When you put that kind of focus and light on it, we did it. And that was the year that GPTs happened to be released in November. So one of the biggest changes that we had was prior in a lot of data centricity, it was a dictation that you need to do this. And the value proposition or outcome wasn't being expressed necessarily in the terms of the people who were using the data because we didn't know how it would be used yet. But as soon as GPTs came about, we have 97% of the company using our GPT on a weekly, almost daily basis. We've had couple hundred GPTs built by employees. We have double, well, actually, probably 30 or 40 enterprise GPTs. So the takeoff has been dramatic and powerful. And what we're spending a lot of time now is how do we really institutionalize it? So looking at processes that we can, rather than individuals using it to fix a component of the process, how do we build agents or how do we integrate in solutions we're finding across an entire job function. So it's really, really exciting, but we happen to be very fortunate that we had this initiative to clean up our data, and then suddenly people could recognize the value of it and the excitement and the ability now to get people to maintain clean data is much higher because they actually can read the benefits and understand implicitly why it's of value to them.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. Even the way you tell the story, it sounds like it was almost a coincidence that there was this huge initiative to make the data so legible and so key part of everyone's job. And then also AI, started booming at a similar time. But I'm a firm believer luck happens to those with vision. So all that
Yeah, I
that
think
tells me
my
about the leadership is about the vision and forward leaning.
Yeah, I mean, I think my high school wrestling coach always said luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yes.
The reality is, I mean, we had been doing AI work before, and as a company, we realized data analytics was going to be critical to our success moving forward. It's just the democratization of work. So before I had to go to data scientists and ask them to run queries for me. Now we all have an extremely powerful engine.
It just is easier.
Yeah,
It
it's just
just is
easier.
faster.
So, yeah, I was fortunate, but it also our company had clearly recognized that to be competitive in the next decade, we needed to start with making sure that we had the right data and clean data. And the infrastructure that our IT team has built is world class. Just our data
Yeah.
stack and pulling all our information out of individual software solutions or SaaS into a common data lake. So we're just able to do some really cool, interesting things with our data.
Love it. So let's talk a little bit about the Prologis transformation. We've talked a little bit about the last 3 years and the focus on data, but you've been there 22 years. You watched it go from A and B property to the huge multi billion dollar merger with Prologis. And now the company describes itself as intelligent infrastructure. So take me inside that evolution.
Yeah.
What does Prologis look like today that would shock someone who last paid attention, I don't know, 5 years ago?
I think real estate's an odd business in that you spend 3 months negotiating a contract with a customer and then try to ignore that customer for the next 5 years. Every other industry you would go into, like, think of your bank. Like, you open an account, they offer all sorts of services and value, and their goal is to capture more of your wallet, but really provide a holistic solution because for convenience-wise, I don't wanna have to go to one place for my bank account, another place for my mortgage, another place for my car loan, another
Sure.
place for right? So there's a convenience factor that by combining these in and bundling these solutions together, consumers find value in it. When we look at real estate, historically it has been, well, here's your four walls and a roof, and each customer, you go deal with it individually. When we took a step back and we're really looking at where do we have unique advantage and what's important to us, customer is always kind of number one. We actually have a very unique advantage because of our size and scale to move beyond the premise of just sign the lease and we'll call you later to how do we really become a partner throughout the life cycle of your business. The way we've thought about it is one of the most powerful things that we can do for our customers is partner with them to extract the maximum value they can get out of their assets. So when they own a warehouse, how do we help you optimize the throughput? How do we help you retain labor? How do we help you integrate in technology that allows systems to work
Mm.
seamless? How can we provide a digital layer that attacks freight theft, for example? And because we have the size and scale, we can actually invest in solutions across a much higher customer base, which allows us to create efficiencies, bring down costs, and create actually market standards. But for our customers, there's value because we can help simplify their process of running the supply chain and bring in our best practices and our knowledge and our unique insights to help them extract the most value they can from their fixed assets.
That makes sense. So, really, what you're saying is that a pretty major transformation that has occurred over the years as, Prologis has continued to invest in technology and, share the wealth of knowledge that it has accumulated with its customers, is that you're helping your customer serve their customer. So that net, it's happy for all parties involved.
Yeah. And it's things where, back to your comment earlier at the beginning, on 2.8% of the world's GDP goes through our warehouse. That's an incredible amount of data that can be used to help drive efficiencies for our customers, help them understand where maybe friction or pain points are happening. The comment I was making earlier about how all these different silos, we happen to own a physical asset that a lot of these different silo companies flow through. So anything we can do to help enable adoption, enable better visibility, there's a benefit. And as an example, when you drive past industrial parks, you'll see trucks lined up outside waiting to get in. We can create a more efficient check-in process using digital cameras, et cetera, and tie that to a bunch of workflows. That's lost cost. Usually when you're eliminating a cost, it's at the detriment to someone, but the trucking companies don't want their drivers sitting idle. The shippers don't want people sitting outside the warehouses just sitting idle. And the municipalities and communities don't want trucks just idling. So there's a lot of opportunities that we feel like we're uniquely positioned to
Yeah,
attack. And then sustainability is a big area of focus. So our goal is to really be able to provide our customers renewable energy across our platform at or below the cost of what they're paying already. Energy generation, as warehouses adopt more technology, or you start putting EV vehicles in, the grid needs to be upgraded. And yes, we are starting to do
yeah,
data centers earlier, which you mentioned. We spent a lot of time thinking about energy generation. So how do we create on-site, on-prem generation to help our customers achieve their business goals as the grid struggles to catch up to what's needed in the current environment?
totally. Super, super insightful. The last comment here, and then we'll move on. But
Yeah.
the thing that I'm hearing, which I think is such an exciting, massive shift, is that you're not building a box, you're running the operating system inside it. Is the
Yeah.
simplest way that I understand what you just said.
Yeah.
So moving on, elephant in the room, or maybe the Nvidia chip in the room. Prologis obviously just committed $25 billion to building data centers. And in February, you announced this partnership with Nvidia, pre-infra partner to study micro data centers for distributed AI. The world's largest warehouse company is now literally building the homes for AI. Walk me through the strategic logic. How did you get from we store stuff to we house artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. We're a logistics company, and our business has traditionally been logistics of moving atoms. Data centers are the logistics of moving electrons. From that perspective, it's just a continuation of the strategy. The reality is we have almost 6,000 buildings. We have 14,000 acres within our land bank. We have an energy team who's exceptional and knows how to energize land, has very deep relationships with utilities kind of across our markets, and is viewed as a fantastic partner. I mean, we have a balance sheet and we know how to execute. So utilities like working with us. There's certainty when we're going to hyperscalers and others that we know how
Mm,
to execute. And we have a pretty significant pipeline of energized land between our land bank and existing buildings looking to convert. So it's an area that we've been very active in the last couple of years.
mhm.
Last year and a half, 2 years, we've built out best in class, world class team because it is important and there's so much opportunity that we really wanted to scale up and have the expert resources so we can have a incomparable opportunity just on execution. It's something we're very excited about. It's obviously a growing area. There's a ton of capital, but I think we are very uniquely positioned because of our existing platform and our expertise in energy and our ability to build buildings that we have a
I could
very
see
unique
that.
value proposition.
Most definitely, I could see that. In fact, the micro data center concept, it's so fascinating. The 5 to 20 megawatts
Yeah.
near utility substations for AI inference workloads, and the 5 pilot sites, I think I read somewhere by the end of 2026. Why does that model make more sense than just building massive hyperscalers? Because it
We're
sounds
doing
like it's
both.
both and. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think with the micro data centers is something that we're starting to explore. Where we have been most active up until now is the hyperscalers. Because again, I mean, that's where the industry has been most active and that's where the most demand is. So It's a thesis that we're testing right now and beginning to explore on, okay, is there opportunity for these microsites? What would it look like? And how would we go about it? And then we have a very robust pipeline on the hyperscaler, much larger, 200, 300 plus data centers that are out there right now.
Yeah, and that's a pretty big impact too, and the connection to the utility and the ability to know how to build.
Yeah.
Those are certainly unique skill sets. All right, so let's kind of shift to your VC hat. You
Yeah.
founded Prologis Ventures and you've invested in, I want to say,
Three
50.
companies.
Okay, 53.
D3 across supply chain, prop tech, energy, sustainability. Obviously, we've done a lot of stuff in data and AI. The way we've looked at it is we're in a unique position because of Prologis being our LP, but then also our deep customer relations. We're what we refer to as a thesis investor, where we'll spend a lot of time mapping out workflows, mapping out, for example, the data center industry and where there's opportunity, where there's friction, and where potential startups could provide a disruption. And in other cases, we're looking at very mature companies that come in and be partners. So we do a pretty extensive buy, build, or partner analysis, but we call ourselves stage agnostic because at the end of the
Mm,
day, our goal is to be able to go in and find a solution for an identified pain point. It allows us to be much more pragmatic than blockchain's coming out is going to revolutionize the world. And it was followed by Web 3.0, and now we're in AI. The reality is we're in the business of commerce, and there are very specific reasons why the industry is developed the way that it is. And
yeah.
there's constraints that are there. So our goal is to find the most relevant technology for that and be able to solve and provide solutions.
That makes sense, kind of on a general thesis. I think I fully understand where you're getting at, but what's the number one pain point that you're currently investing against for all that are listening?
I mean, the one that everyone's looking at right now is around energy, resilience, generation, et cetera. I mean, that's an area we're spending a lot of time. And both combination of how do we build out business lines within Prologis that can provide solutions, and how do we find partners that we can bring in. The two other areas we're spending a lot of time would be obvious one, AI. So what are the implications of AI? What will work today? What's the future going to look like? How do
Hmm.
we adopt it within Prologis? And then how do we provide AI-driven solutions for our customers, especially in that framework of us being an operating system for their business. And then the group that does kind of the infrastructure and strategy behind everything inside and around the warehouse, what we call
Hmm.
operations essentials. That's a big priority too on how do we find the right partners, both with startups and sometimes very mature companies, to be able to provide that holistic solution for our customers. So our goal
Yeah.
is not to be the best in class for 8,000 different categories, but we can be the strategic partner that can help choose our partners what solutions work best for them.
That makes so much sense. And why wouldn't you? So obviously you've got
Yeah.
companies like, Locust Robotics or Outrider or Gideon doing autonomous
Yeah.
forklifts. So give me the before and after. What did a warehouse floor look like 2 years ago versus what your portfolio companies are enabling today?
I'll expand the time
Yeah,
difference a little
please.
more than 2 years, but I think the challenge with warehouses is it's all about throughput. So goods come in, you have to store them and then move them out. And as you think about e-commerce, the customer expectations on delivery has changed pretty dramatically. So we all believe it's our God-given right that I should get a package in a day, right? So what are the implications then on supply chain enable that to happen? So that's why pretty massive investments have been made or are starting to be explored around automation. So
Mm,
how do I leverage automation to enhance the efficiency of a labor workforce? Something like Locus is a great example, where in picking and packing, you used to have humans have to walk 7 to 11 miles a day, grabbing things off shelves. With Locus, I can stay in one spot and the robot comes to me. I put the good in and it goes to somewhere else. So you increase the satisfaction of the job pretty significantly. You increase the throughput, et cetera. So I think you went from very manual, like siloed operations. Things were done on Excel, paper. You have WMS systems that were inventory to much more complicated solutions. So you're trying to integrate automation into it now.
Hmm.
You're using cameras, as we were talking about earlier, computer vision to optimize operations or for security purposes. You're really, what our customers are getting very excited about is how do we capture or create data that gives them actionable insights. The supply chain will always be unpredictable. There's going to be tariffs and floods and et cetera. But the faster I can compile information and connect the dots, the faster I can respond. So
Yes.
what our customers, and probably one of the biggest differences, is where a lot of time was spent trying to compile and build and research what was happening. The faster that happens, the faster humans can be focused on decision making and the steps forward. And that's where we're seeing a lot of our customers get excited about use case in AI. How do we increase our ability and efficiency of our workforce by giving them the right information at the right time?
Yeah. Yeah. All of that sounds so natural. It sounds so obvious. Obviously, to spend time in energy. Yes. AI. Yes. Automation, making operations better.
Yeah.
Absolutely. On the flip side, obviously, you get hundreds of pitches every year. What's
Yeah.
the pitch type you keep getting that you're just like, listen, this is never gonna work for warehouses and data centers. Stop trying to pitch this.
I think it gets back to when technology is in search of a solution versus there's a very clear, defined pain point that someone could put things against. I think one of the challenges that exists in an industry like supply chain or prop tech, that unless you have a very clearly defined understanding of what the problem is, the adoption of technology or the use of technology is often off. And the thing which I way underestimated, even having been at Prologis for 12 years when we started Ventures, was the amount of change management it takes to get people to behave differently. And I think this is
That's the
where,
hardest thing in the whole world is to get people to change what they do.
yes, exactly. And that is what a lot of companies struggle with, that if it's incrementally better or it's not really solving a real pain point, it could be the flashiest, great, interesting technology, but people aren't going to adopt it because it didn't actually make their lives easier in a
Yes.
way. I mean, if you think about really great technology, you pick it up and you know how to use it. And you don't have to go through 10 hours of training. You don't have to relearn. It just feels a natural progression. Technology that's incrementally better or completely makes people change their processes is tough. And we at Pilates have spent a lot of time as we're looking at technology, also looking at the processes behind it.
Hmm.
And do we have the right process in place? Are we efficient? Is there extra steps that we're taking that we shouldn't be? Because digitizing bad process just leads to digital bad process.
Yes.
So we've seen people where it's like, okay, well, I want a new technology, but I want to do everything exactly how I did it. And all you end up with is a fancy digital screen of their old process. And it doesn't work. So it's one of those things, like we have a operational excellence team and they spend a lot of time with internal groups really mapping out both the outcome of where we want to get to.
Hmm.
Defining that North Star is super important because people think they're on the same page. And then 6 months later, they realize, like, okay, we announced we were going on a road trip and you got in your car and drove to San Diego and I drove to Miami and now we're pissed at each other.
We
Uh,
both have great weather, but totally
yeah.
different great weather.
But it's really clear outcome and what
Yeah.
desire is, and then mapping out the process to get there, making sure it's repeatable. And then that's when we start applying technology against it. The change management's easier. You get faster buy off because people understand the outcome and they feel a part of actually designing the optimal solution.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. More thoughtful, even if it takes a touch longer, but it's a super thought out process. Like taking a step backwards is sometimes saves, I don't know, 2, 5, 10 steps in the future.
I mean, my personality is one that likes to move very fast,
Sure.
but it's sometimes you have to move slow to move fast. And
Exactly.
the analogy I often use is the road trip one, that, like, if I just announce we're on a road trip and everyone's runs to the car in 6 months, it's a complete cluster. Like, we're yelling at each other, like we didn't plan. But if you actually sit down, plan it out, define it, and really good process gives people freedom because they then know
Yes.
the rules of engagement, the lane. Bad process is bureaucratic. But if you spend the time developing, here's the outcome we're going to, here's the process, each of our roles, yeah, that takes a little bit more time up front, But 6 months down the road, everyone's rowing in the same direction.
Yep.
When changes happen, which they do, like we're doing really hard stuff. And if we didn't
Sure.
make a mistake, we weren't trying hard enough. So you need to make sure people are aligned. Them being data centric and looking at data and communicating, here's what we learned and here's why we're going to pivot. But that work up front allows it to happen in the success versus, yeah, we're going to go do this and everyone in the company needs to behave differently. Good luck. Have at it.
Yeah, that does not sound fun. All
No.
right. So that was super insightful. We're moving on to our second to the last segment called rapid fire. This is all
All right.
personal. These are one to two word answers. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Okay, morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
Spreadsheets or slide decks?
Oh God. Neither. Probably spreadsheets.
uh okay. I like that. AI tool you use most in the day.
ChatGPT.
Okay. Well,
Prologis GPT, actually. That's the
hey,
technical brand.
Prologis. Does it go as PGT? Have you kind of
Oh,
made
that's
it
a
your
good
own name?
question. We haven't come up with we acronym everything else. So I'm surprised we haven't acronym that one yet.
That's funny. I'm sure it's going to happen soon.
Yeah,
I'm
it
putting
probably is
PGT out in the
PGT.
world.
I'm sure PGT is what it is. I just have been
Uh,
ignoring it.
oh, that's funny. All right. Well, last thing. You've spent 22 years at one of the companies watching itself reinvent itself. You've backed 53 startups. You've seen the works, what doesn't work, and what's coming next. So, what's the one piece of advice that you would give to a real estate logistics professional who's just trying to figure out their AI strategy right now? Some are all in, some are
Yeah.
paralyzed, and most are between. But what's the one piece of advice that they should walk away with someone who's definitely getting a front row seat and is part of building something so unique?
I think one of the character traits that's going to be most important in the coming decade and beyond is intellectual curiosity. AI is new for everyone. The speed at what we're having to learn and evolve and really push things forward is just different. And the amount of change that's happened. So being intellectually curious, I'm a big fan of adjacent learning. So how do I go look at what other people, other companies? One of my favorite books I've read that I recommend to people is called Range.
Mm,
And it's really about the importance for individuals to get a diversity of perspective and experience. And I think the ability to connect dots and see how different parts of an organization or different technologies can be blended to actually drive outcomes is a critical part. To answer directly your question on what companies can do, I think as a starting point, defining an outcome, like what is important or where is the pain point that we want to apply AI against? And it can be completely overwhelming if I'm looking at a Prologis or a real estate company as a whole and say, well, what's everything that AI could do? But an easy starting point is like, what is a process that a significant number of our employees touch that they do on a very frequent basis? And where is there friction or pain within that process that we could potentially apply AI against?
mm,
And I think getting and building the muscle on how do you innovate. And one of the things that's challenging in real estate, like we're used to having a blueprint of a building and building that building. So there's a fair degree of certainty before I begin construction. In an aspect like this, like, okay, I know the outcome to some degree that I want to create efficiency around this process. How I get there and the steps I take are a learning process. So how to run pilots, how to look at the data, and understand like, okay, even if it didn't do exactly what I wanted or expected, that's a win because I learned
yeah.
and moving forward. And I think that comfort level of we're just going to try. The reality is most decisions, to borrow an Amazon phrase, are two-door decisions. By that is I can make it, and if it doesn't work, I'll go back and do what I was doing. There's very few things that are one-door decisions. Like once you're through that door, like there's no going back.
Yeah.
And especially as you're testing and accepting the fact that a lot of these things are two-door decisions. Like, I'm going to try this out. If it doesn't work, well, we'll just continue what we're doing. It's fine.
Yeah.
The reality is you'll probably learn and you'll get better. And it's an iterative process that people go through. And I think the challenge that people run into also with this is there's 100 questions that I feel like I need to answer. What are like 4 or 5 binary questions that I could start with and run a small pilot? Because if a question's like, does this actually improve our process? If the answer is no, then I don't need to go answer the other 99 and I'll go figure out something else. But there's a tendency at time that humans want to be like, well, I know they're going to ask me the tax implications of if I bill a customer this. Well, if customers don't want to buy it, you don't ever need to figure
It
out the tax
doesn't
implication.
matter.
It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
So I think breaking it down into the bite size and then understand, hey, we're piloting. It's completely a two-way door. And what's the question we need to answer to give us confidence that we should progress and continue to move forward?
That is sage advice. So for all that are listening, the 2, 3 things that I picked up. One, be curious, stay curious, try things. And that kind of flows into the second. Try things. Don't be scared to
Yeah.
try things. And it's okay to try them in a bite-sized
Yeah.
way. You don't have to solve everything all at once, which makes so much sense. Well,
Yeah.
Will O'Donnell, founder of Prologis Ventures, global head of corporate development in Prologis, thank you for bringing the real talk today. This was such a
No, I
pleasure.
appreciate it. It was awesome. Good conversation, and thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Real Estate Meets AI podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe on your favorite streaming platform and follow us on social media at cove.inc. Until next time, I'm Sandeep Ahuja.